Hello, and welcome to Listen, Learn, Live, the podcast where you can practice your English listening skills with us. I'm Sarah, and I'm here with my co-host John. How's it going today?
Hey Sarah, I'm doing great. Thanks. And hi to everyone listening. I'm really excited about today's episode because we're talking about something really useful, small talk. It's something that a lot of people struggle with, especially when learning a new language.
Exactly. Small talk might seem, small, but it's actually super important. It's how we connect with people in casual situations, right?
Totally. It's one of the most common types of conversations, but it can be tricky, especially if you're not used to it. The good news is, we're going to share a fun story today that shows how small talk works in everyday life, plus we'll give you some tips to help you practice it.
Yeah, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation. Let's jump into our story of the day. It's called the Café conversation. So imagine this. It's a sunny afternoon, and Sarah is sitting at her favorite cafe. She's enjoying a cup of coffee, relaxing and people watching, when she notices a man at the table next to her looking confused. He's holding the menu, but it's pretty clear he's having trouble deciding what to order.
Yeah, he looks a bit lost. You know that look when someone just can't decide. We've all been there. Anyway, Sarah decides to be friendly, so she leans over and says, "Do you need help?"
Nice, that's a great way to start a conversation, isn't it?
Exactly. It's polite, and it shows that she's willing to help out. The man, John, looks up, clearly relieved that someone is offering a suggestion.
He says, "Yeah, actually, I'm not sure what's good here. Do you come here often?"
And that's the classic small talk question right there. But do you come here often? It's simple, but it keeps the conversation going.
"Oh, all the time," Sarah replies. "The coffee here is great and the sandwiches are really good too. I usually get the chicken sandwich."
That sounds great, John says. I'll try that then. Thanks for the recommendation.
Now, at this point, Sarah thinks the conversation is over. She goes back to her book, but John isn't finished talking yet.
Right, John isn't done with the small talk. He goes on to say, "I'm new to this area, by the way. Just moved here last week."
And Sarah, being friendly, replies, "Oh, really? Where did you move from?"
"I came from a small town about 2 hours away," John explains. "It's much quieter there, so this city is a big change for me."
Sarah smiles and says, "Yeah, the city can be overwhelming at first, but you'll get used to it. There are lots of great places to visit around here."
"That's good to know. Maybe I'll check some out once I settle." And he pauses and then introduces himself. "By the way, I'm John."
"Nice to meet you, John the First. I'm Sarah," she says, shaking his hand. And that's how Sarah and John start a friendly conversation. What I love about this story is how simple the conversation is, but it feels natural, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's a great example of how small talk can start in the most ordinary situations, like ordering food at a cafe. And did you notice how they didn't dive into deep topics right away? They kept it light and casual.
Right, that's key to small talk. You don't have to talk about anything serious. Just focus on simple questions and comments to keep the conversation going.
Exactly. And speaking of questions, let's go over some of the useful phrases from the story.
Sure, the first one that stood out was when Sarah asked, "Do you need help?" That's a great way to start a conversation. When you see someone struggling, it's polite and shows that you're friendly.
Definitely. And then John asked, "Do you come here often?" This is one of those small talk staples. You can use it in many situations, like when you're at a cafe, a gym, or anywhere new. It's a perfect icebreaker.
Exactly. And later, John says, "I'm new to this area." That's a helpful phrase for when you've just moved somewhere or started a new job or school. It gives the other person a chance to tell you more about the place.
Yeah, and it also invites the other person to keep the conversation going, which is what Sarah did when she asked, "Where did you move from?" It's a simple question, but it keeps the flow of the conversation.
So, if you're listening at home, here's what we recommend. Try to use these phrases in your daily conversations. Ask someone, "Do you need help?" or "Do you come here often?" It might feel awkward at first, but the more you practice, the easier it will get.
And don't forget the key to small talk. Keep it light and casual. You don't need to dive into deep discussions right away. Just enjoy the interaction.
And remember, it's okay to make mistakes. We all do, especially when learning a new language. The important thing is to keep practicing and improving.
Before we wrap up, let's practice the podcast where you practice your English listening and speaking skills with us.
That's right. This is an interactive practice lesson. We're going to guide you through some small talk practice. We'll give you a situation, and we want you to respond. Don't worry if it feels a bit awkward. This is all about practicing, and the more you speak, the better you'll get.
And here's how it'll work. We'll give you a sentence or a question, and we'll leave some time for you to say your response out loud. Ready to give it a try? Let's dive in.
All right, let's start with something easy. Imagine you're at a coffee shop, and you see someone sitting next to you. You want to start a conversation. What do you say?
Great if you're not sure. Here's an example. You could say, "Hi, do you come here often?" Simple, right?
Exactly. Now it's your turn again. Imagine the person responds with, "Yes, I do. I love the coffee here." What could you say next to keep the conversation going?
Good job. You could say something like, "I'd never tried their coffee. What do you recommend?" See how that keeps the conversation flowing.
Remember, small talk is all about asking questions and sharing little bits of information. Let's try another one.
Now, imagine you're standing in line at the grocery store. You turn to the person next to you, and you want to make small talk about the weather. What could you say?
Nice. A classic option is, "It's such a nice day today, isn't it?" Or, "This rain just won't stop, huh?"
Exactly. Weather is one of the easiest small talk topics. Let's keep going. Now, let's say the person responds, "Yeah, it's been raining all week." What could you say next to keep the conversation going?
Great. You could say something like, "I know. I hope it clears up by the weekend." That gives the other person a chance to continue the conversation, and it keeps things light.
Before we wrap up, let's share a few tips to help our listeners practice small talk in English.
Great idea. Tip number 1, start with simple questions. Ask someone about the weather, their weekend plans, or how they are doing. These are easy and natural ways to begin.
Tip number 2, be an active listener. Don't just focus on what you're going to say next. Really listen to the other person. This helps you learn how conversations flow naturally.
Tip number 3, practice regularly. The more you practice, the more confident you'll become. So, don't be afraid to strike up a conversation, even if it's just a quick chat.
All right, that's it for today's episode. We hope you enjoyed our conversation and learned some new phrases to use in your own small talk.
Thanks for listening to Listen Learn Live. Don't forget to subscribe and join us next time for more stories and tips to help you practice your English. Until then, keep practicing, and remember, every conversation is a chance to improve.
Take care, and we'll see you next time.